Okay, kia ora koutou, talofa lava, mayor and councillors. So I'm going to switch to. Is that working? Oh, there we go. So the purpose of today's workshop is to ensure that you have all the information to enable you to make decisions at deliberations. So what you will receive in the council agenda, information on your portal, and any final questions that you may have. So we are in the blue section there, the do, so which we're needing your feedback. Cool. So what you've received for deliberations, so here's a list of the different documents that you will receive. So you will have the deliberation summary report, and then also the report 1 sharing costs, and then the second report is activities report, the third report is managing waste, and then the fourth report, fees and charges and other policies, and then the fifth report is financial matters, and the sixth report, what services do we need for community? So that's the rates. And did you want to touch base on? So just until we'll just go over also for the information that you receive on your portals as well.
So based on last week, we won't go through it again today, but we'll be adding some more information, for example, making sure the 20-year capital program is on there. That's also an appendix for your report, though. But also in relation to things like the borrowings and the movement in borrowings for each year and every component that makes that up. We'll include that as well, and hopefully it'll get there in the next few minutes onto your portal, but is the budget calculator that we talked about last week. So we have at this stage, we've set it up so that we are getting to the 16.1% that we discussed last week. In addition to that, we have also included all of the items that made up our decision to move to option 2, as well as our decisions to move, as well as the options that were available to the public under option 3. And there is also then a section for you to add additional options that you may want to put forward as part of the deliberations process. I know there was some conversation across the table about whether you wanted to work on that individually or get a sense of where the table was at. We are going to include it in the central portal, so you've got the option to include those items as you work on them and think of them. But if you choose to work on that separately yourself and bring that to the deliberations, that is still an option that you have as well.
I'm conscious that the calculator we've just put up is actually the calculator from last year, so that's a mistake. There is a new template which just enter in the table of belt, so that's what will get loaded to your portal, and that's what we're asking that you use to help guide your decision making.
Can I just ask then, so seeing the order there of the reports and the topics, does that anticipate us going through each of the items, item by item? Or if, for example, an elected member wanted to put a package on the table right at the start that says it assumes this, and this, how does that work then? So, for example, take option 2 with some extras out or in. That separate decisions are then required, for example, about solid waste, about emissions, about those kind of things, right? So it doesn't, and then that any changes to those other sort of subsequent things would change the underlying number of the first decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Can you just talk me through how we actually, what the framework looks like in terms of the decision making?
Yeah. So we've, and I'm not quite sure if that is the final order, But what is very deliberately the final two reports that you'll consider is the financial matters report, and then finally, what services do you need for our community, which is topic 1 that you consulted on. And the reason for that is that when you're debating options 1, 2, and 3 within topic 1, you're doing that based on the information you now have, as well as subsequent to any other decisions you may have made through the course of your deliberation. So, for example, in the financial matters report, that's where as management we've raised with you the additional work we've done to get it down from 17.4 to 16.1. But in the activities report, you've got some funding requests from Surf Life Saving, Live In Tennis Club, etc., etc. The calculator is to help guide you on the cumulative impact on all of that. But in terms of the actual decision on rates, which is ultimately linked to services, that will be the final report council will debate. In that report, there are 4 options for council to consider. The 3 options you consulted on, or option 4 being a pick and mix between 2 and 3. Officers have not provided a recommendation, nor have we suggested what that pick and mix might be. And in the report, we have provided some guidance about that would be for elected members to utilise mechanisms via standing orders to consider what that might look like. But Mayor Burney and I, together with the Deputy Mayor during agenda preview earlier this week, what that means is that councillors are going to need to be aware that the decisions you make, so hypothetically, let's say council debated option 2 and adopted option 2, if council's not being specific that they want to, within that, exclude the removal of burn mowing, for example, passing that resolution and then someone raising that they want to now debate burn mowing isn't an option. What you're doing is you're debating packages unless an additional package is brought forward by someone around the table.
So a little bit like the actual package that we did for going out to consultation, where I presented a package, but there were people that wanted to make amendments to that package by, because they wanted something included into it. So then a debate ensued around that. So in the end, we ended up with an amendment. But we do need to make those other decisions first before we get to that final stage.
Yeah, and so a good example might be you talked about the community organisations that have asked us for additional funding.
Yeah.
So during deliberations, are we going to have to go and consider them individually, one by one, or can early in the proceedings someone say, fund none of them, like stick with the existing budget, or fund all of them, or fund these ones, like as a package? I'm just using that as an example because it's most obvious.
So using that as an example, the way we've presented that information is you've got the individual information on what they've requested, but we've also given you what that means cumulatively. I think officers' recommendation, from memory, which is to me here over many pages, but I think it might be we're recommending CPI increase, for example. Obviously, that's the will of the table to determine what is the approach you want to make to those requests for additional funding.
Super. Thank you.
I don't mean to pick on that particular example, but I did ask, and maybe it's in the report, I'm just checking, the 2 clubs, Surf Life Saving clubs, asked for different amounts, and I wanted to understand whether what they're providing is more the same or less for the money, to understand whether it's because we currently fund them exactly the same amount. Now, if we were to change one higher than the other, it needs to be justified, and I wanted to understand the detail so that that could be a fair consideration or not. Is that captured in the report?
In the report, we've spoken to the difference between the two services, and that being one, Surf Lifesaving New Zealand requesting 4 lifeguards, whereas Live in Waitanere is requesting 3, as they have in the previous years. The officer's recommendation, I think, from memory, is that council funds the same amount for both surf lifesaving services.
So, but just coming back to your earlier point, Councillor Jennings, where I think you might have been signalling that hypothetically the decision on landfill legacy rate might be able to be caught up in the final decision council might make about rates. That is not how we have structured the reports, and nor would that be my advice, because that's not how council approached your decisions to adopt the draft. So yeah, the decisions you've made to adopt the draft is the same approach we've taken to the way you'll consider the adoption of the final.
Sounds entirely sensible. Thanks for clarifying.
Just to clarify as well, I have emailed it to you in the interim, and that's only just to help with the conversation today while it gets loaded to the portal. But you'll see as well, for example, we started at the 17.4. We in the deliberations papers will be recommending the package of options based on the fact that council officers have gone and saved some more to get to a net position of 16.1. So that's seen as a block of options there to get to the 16.1. Therefore, when you see your options in terms of starting the modelling, they start at the 16.1. We have included all of option 2 and then further down into option 3. Some of the activity proposers will populate some more of those, and then any additional options that we've seen coming through or have heard about, we've started to populate those in there as well. There is a couple of points. So if you're working on it yourself and you want to do it offline, you can muck around with the yeses and the nos in terms of your different options, and you will get to the revised increase down the bottom here. It's important to note as well that we have also included the borrowings impact here, and you can press the little button at the top in terms of increasing the view so that you've got year 1, year 2, and year 3 borrowings. And the reason for that is if you're deciding, for example, that you may wish to propose to reduce the level of depreciation funding, for example, then that will have a flow-on impact into borrowings, and then we'll give you a sense of where the running tracker is in terms of borrowings as a percentage of operating income. In the risk and assurance meeting before, we did comment that in the Standard & Poor's visit last week, they gave us a pretty clear steer that if we move beyond 240%, then there is a risk of a downgrade for us. And so we've given that percentage margin so that you've got, because we are tracking very close to it. In year 2, for example, I think we're at 239. And that's why we've been quite clear in terms of each year and what that means for borrowings as well as rates. Yes, so that is the financial matters paper, where the items that we worked through with you last week, and that's effectively the management submission. So each of those items that we worked through last week is what's incorporated there. The only difference to that is the addition of the election costs, and that relates to the potential referendum. So that's us adding in some extra money for that.
Yeah, so we're not asking. We've built the model so that it starts at 16.1. We're not asking you for your opinion on yeses and nos on that. Yeah, correct. You're starting at option 2.
So we will have it on there centrally, and if you are voting in there, just to have a central register, you can put your yeses and your nos in the column that relates to your name, and then what column C will do in that sense is it will look at where there are 7 or more. We'll look at where there's a majority of positions that would support that, Otherwise, if you're just working on it yourself, you can just use column C and type your yes or your no.
This is a tool to help you with your decision-making process. It is not intended to make the decision, and officers will not be making any comment on what you are putting into that. That is for you as elected members to use as you see wish, as you face deliberations.
Anybody has any questions or needs any help, just give me a quick call or send me an email. Happy to help anyone. The reason why they are, you mean the other way around, some of them that were savings? It is the other way around for that one, because in option 2 we have already reduced it, and so if the answer is no, I guess then we'll be adding it back in because it's already included. Yeah, so we've added it the other way around so that if it's the right, I'll tweak it then. That's fine. Thank you. Yeah.
Just to also clarify some things, because, like, for example, further down, additional options, you're inviting, elected members can test that. And so, like, a good example is like climate change one. I was under the impression that that's already in the budget, right? So that doesn't actually require a separate decision, is that right? Because the workshop direction was included in our budget, and so it would require a proactive decision to exclude it from the budget. Is that right? Just to be fair and clear.
Go right down, Jacinta, so I can see that. I think
that one there.
Yeah, so that shouldn't be in there. What should be in
emissions monitoring?
Yeah, is the emissions
Sweet.
monitoring.
That's fine. That's good. No,
and so for example, the emissions monitoring one, for example, you've laid it on the table. Therefore, we're raising it within the financial matters section of the deliberation reports.
But equally, if you wanted to add a further 100,000, then that would be your avenue to do that.
Yeah, and what I would encourage you to do is, we'll tidy that up before it goes on the portal. But if there are some things that you're wanting to test, and I know that Councillor Tukapo has reached out and she's tested something around the funding of depreciation. I'd really, if it's not something we have directly consulted on, then please test it with us, because it's important we get the opportunity to give you the advice about what does that mean in terms of the modelled impact, but also to test, for us to give that advice about whether it would trigger significance or not. And if it's typically something we've been talking about, then it won't. But if it's something completely new, then my advice is going to be, I don't know if we've given the community the opportunity to give their feedback on that.
Yeah, so I just might, attempt to explain my test, which was consulted on, so it's a valid thing. And I've raised this now in 2 public workshops, so it shouldn't be the first time you're hearing it. And that's the line there about the 2.4% of depreciation. So at the moment, in year 1, we have proposed 83% of depreciation funding, and moving by year 3 to 100% depreciation funding. What I was looking for was a shift from 83% to 80.6%. That's where you get the 2.4 difference. What that equates to is 525,000, which would get us down to the 15% rate rise, not 16.1, and it's just a whole percent of savings, and that's just in a period where I guess the cost of living and I guess what's hoped will change middle of next year around interest rates for people, and then things coming, a slight improvement so that they can by year 3 handle that extra 1%. So it's not taking it out completely, it's just a pause on 2 points. And while it might sound like small numbers, it actually makes a difference and it's not dramatic. So we will still fully fund depreciation by year 3 as planned. Instead of 83% now, it will be 80.6, the 2.4, and get us down to 15% average rate rise. So flagging it now, but I'll debate it then, deliberations, and I'll have obviously examples why.
I like this. Should the calculator for it show in year 3 an increase of the unfunded depreciation? Because it doesn't currently.
So it should, for example, based on what Councillor talked about, we're trying to get something to work there, saying for year 1, you wanted to save 525. For year 2, you did as well, but then you wanted to bring that back and fully fund it by year 3. So that by year 3 you were.
In dollar terms, it would be like it's currently 18, would be rating for $18.2 million ratepayer money for depreciation, and the 100% moves to $22 million. So yeah, what I'm asking for is 525,000 for now. Yeah, push it out.
Just understanding the implications of that, does that mean year 2 goes to 14.6 or year 3 goes to 11 point? Right.
So I'll finish testing it today because it was only done this afternoon in the workshop. But you should then be able to look at the following 2 columns and see what year 2 and year 3 look like then as well, so that you can see the implications. I just need to double check it all works. And see there, for example, there was a conversation about the borrowings cap that would, for example, move us to 241% of our income, and that is because we're dropping our rates revenue, which is our operating income, so that pushes our percentage slightly up. Even though our debt doesn't increase because we might balance it with capital, our operating income reduces, and so that's what shifts us slightly over. Yeah. So we'll finalise it, but hopefully then you can see the 3-year impact on debt, the 3-year impact on rates, and get that sort of running total of where those things stand. If there is any decisions around the borrowings, again, it's probably good to just check in with me. If you want to have a go at putting it in yourself. Otherwise, there might be a few that might need a bit of change between rates and debt if you do want to model any of those.
Can I flag the composting trial? How keen are people on the composting trial that was pitched to us? People like that? Yeah. Does Daniel's team want to make up some number and put it in a field on that? I think it ended up. I think 50k for a pilot or something would be a great thing to do and should work out cost positive from the numbers he presented, and the numbers I ran were like 3 times better. Wow, Gina.
And some detail around our waste levy, the funding we get back, I'd asked if that could be attributed to that rather than our rate money.
So in the deliberations report, we have provided you some information which includes some commentary on the additional funding we now anticipate to receive, which from memory is like an additional 140k next year that we didn't think we would receive. And there is some high level commentary in the report that speaks to council may want to use that funding to offset on recycling costs, or it may like to use that funding to implement waste minimisation initiatives from the WMMP, which could include things like the composting trial. The deliberation reports, the council agenda will be with you by midnight tonight. The team have worked really hard on them. Are they perfect? No. But they never will be, right? Because to assist you in your decision making, there'll always be things that come up. If when you read them there is anything glaringly missing where you're like, hey, I asked for this and I can't see this, please just email me. Don't embarrass us next Wednesday and say, oh, I asked for this and it's not been provided. There's a couple of things I've already given Pity a heads up. One of the things she asked for, I just don't have the data yet back from MSD, but so if we've not captured it in the deliberations report, we'll do our very best to make sure you've got it ahead of the actual conversation at next Wednesday's council meeting. Also in that council agenda, like there's a number of attachments which refer to information you've requested, but also have linked in the council reports from February when you made your initial decisions for the draft around waste, and then back in December when you made your decisions around topics and approach for the long-term plan, and would just really encourage elected members to refresh yourself on that work as well, because we've done our best to not just copy and paste information. We're trying to pull it all together in a way which will help you hopefully with your decisions.
Jacinda, in terms of the recycling topic, you know, the option around charging rural users who currently are unchanged, have we got some sort of data that tells us what the impact will be on those ratepayers, and if there's any, have we, you know, sort of captured anything there in that space?
We do, in the sense that the recycling charge that's there, what it is off the top of my in the $90-some, is that the rural portion that currently receive the service and don't pay for it, that will be effectively that will be the additional charge that they will charge. We also we heard from members of the rural community and representatives of the rural people representing the rural community as well, that there was a preference to keep the current differential of 80-20. So the deliberations report does show what the fixed charge would be for the rural community if that had occurred, and if it had it with both options, so you can see that impact. Yes. Yeah.
Deliberations are set down for Wednesday and Thursday, but I understand Mayor Burney is going to test his chairing skills and get it done on Wednesday. Is that right, Mayor Burney?
Look, I don't want to presume or assume anything in terms of this, but I mean, ideally, we should be able to crack this out in one day. But I understand that, you know, there'll be plenty to discuss and debate, and that will be pretty much see how it goes on the day. If I feel that we get to a certain stage and I think we're struggling, or we're I'll be quite happy to adjourn and continue the final discussion, if you like, on day 2. But it just depends how it flows, how sort of how combative, I suppose, it is, some of the decision making in terms of that, and understand it. But I will be probably reasonably strict in terms of unless you've got a prior, a negative to what the proposal is, and I don't want 13 people saying the same thing type of thing. We'll try to manage that sort of feedback, and that if I sense that there's general support for a proposal, then I'll try to move that subject along reasonably quickly. But obviously, we'll play it by ear a little bit.
Yeah, cool. My only response to that would be that this is the highest rate rise in the history of the Horo-Whenua District Council. So I don't want to be rushing, but at the same time I can appreciate Yeah, where you come from. What's that? It is a little bit painful. So I just want to flag that I will be referring, well, we all will be referring to submissions, but one of the glaring ones for me that provides a real breakdown and example of the impact is submission 323. So if you haven't, well, we've all read it, yeah. If you haven't, just take a closer look. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. So we've come to the end. If you don't have any other questions, or just want to make sure that you have everything you need in order to make those decisions at deliberations. Yeah, cool. Okay, thank you.
So the only thing that's left to do now is pretty much the chief executive KPI stuff, and any other elected EM issues that everybody might have. I'm not sure what the situation